also known as the body scientist and the Renaissance Amazon. And I am here today from Havana, Cuba, to make a video for you all. This video is about my experiences here in Havana. I was born and raised in Harlem, and my dad is from St. Augustine, Florida. His family is from St. Augustine, Florida, for as far back as we can trace. My mom is from Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania, and her dad is from Pensacola, Florida. It's not often that I meet people from Florida. Usually when I do, they're from the Caribbean, and they came to Florida. But my dad was heavily involved in the civil rights movement. He went to Florida A&M, got kicked out for being involved in the movement, was a part of the organization that strategically put Black Panthers together, which actually started in Alabama, registering people to vote. And he was a Black radical. And I remember when I was 12 years old, my dad told me, Florida Negroes were not like the rest of the South. Like, Black people in Florida were never on some yes sir, yes ma'am. Florida has a different history. They were runaway slaves and Seminole Indians, and they joined forces and fought together against the U.S. government. And this mixture of African and indigenous is not unique to Florida. It's not unique to New Orleans. It's something that you find all throughout the Americas, and something that I feel like is underdocumented. But I'll be doing another video on that. And so I've always felt this connection to Cuba. The Spanish-speaking countries in general, Cuba in particular, and also Haiti. I have a great love for Haiti, but something about Cuba it's like I felt my ancestors there so strong. I also felt my ancestors in New Orleans, even though I don't have any direct connection to New Orleans. And the first time I went to New Orleans, I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't really know anything about New Orleans. I went there for a conference in 2007 at Tulane on dances of the African diaspora. And it was focused on Afro-Cuban, Haitian, Congolese, Afro-Brazilian, and we had a weekend on dances and traditions from New Orleans, and that's where I learned about the Mardi Gras Indians and the fact that, Black people, which I have to put in quotes, because Black people in America or wherever, it's all the social constructs, okay? So most of us Black people are actually mixed blood. Most of us are part Native American, part European, so, what was I going to say? I just totally lost my train of thought. New Orleans, Black people acknowledge this African Native mixture, camaraderie, the fact that the natives taught African stuff, that they sold things together, created together, fought together, and they give thanks for that. And so that brought tears in my eyes to see people that actually acknowledge that, and do it with pride. And it's not something, again, that's only in New Orleans. We find it all throughout the Americas. It's not true that all the indigenous people are dead. When Africans ran away in Jamaica, when they ran away in Cuba and Brazil, a lot of times there were native people, red people in those woods. And the flora and fauna over here is different. So natives taught Africans a lot of things, and there's this huge Afro-indigenous mixture in the Americas. It's very obvious in Cuba, but it's very obvious to me everywhere, especially in Cuba, Puerto Rico. Cuba, Puerto Rico, and all throughout the United States. Okay. So I've always felt this big draw to Cuba. My dad, he plays the conga drums. He's very much into Afro-Cuban music and rhythms. And I grew up in a neighborhood full of Dominicans who look just like me, just like my family, more African than me and my family. And just, being in a neighborhood that was heavily Dominican and seeing, when I was a kid and I would see them and they're speaking Spanish, I'm like, Dad, I thought that person was Black. And he's like, they are Black. They're Black Dominican. Dominican is not a race. It's a nationality. You could be a white Dominican or a Black Dominican or an Asian Dominican or a Chinese Dominican or a Native or any mixture of that. Just like you could be a white American, a Black American, a Chinese American, Native American. And so a lot of people, when they think Dominican or Puerto Rican or Cuban, they think one thing. they may think J-Lo or Ricky Ricardo. When there are Cubans that look like me, there's Cubans that look like you, and everything in between, okay? So, in the history in Cuba, there's a lot it has in common with black people in the United States. All the Americas have a history of slavery and oppression of black and indigenous people. However, Cuba, unlike a lot of the Spanish-speaking countries, the black people in Cuba really have a strong African identity and black identity. I could be around Dominicans who look just like me, and they'll tell me to my face, "Oh, I'm not black," you know. But also, in their defense, race is defined differently in different countries. It's a social construct. The United States said one drop of black blood makes you black. That's not necessarily based off anything factual. That's what the United States made up. Not every country defines it that way. And so whatever, but I'm just saying, they really, a lot of Dominicans run from that. I know some who don't, but they're very few and far in between. Afro-Cubans have a very strong, like Afro-Cuban black identity and consciousness, just like Afro-Americans to me. There are many African religions that are alive here, and it's not just the Yoruba. It's also stuff from the Congo, stuff from the Dahomey, stuff from the Haitians, Haitian voodoo. So when I started studying dances of the African diaspora in 2006, and I started to learn about, a lot of the history, a lot of our history that is not documented. Okay, the dancing teaches so much. So I studied Afro-Cuban dances, different styles of social and religious dances with various teachers in New York and Miami, teachers who are from Cuba who had come to the U.S. to teach, also Haitian stuff. And there's so much I learned from doing the dances. So much that I learned that you can only really understand when you do those dances. And there's so much medicine in them. Actually, I have a really good book to recommend to you all. Hold on. Okay. This book right here, which I read many years ago, it's called Dancing Wisdom. Dancing Wisdom, Embodied Knowledge in Haitian Voodoo, Cuban Yoruba, and Bahian Candomblé by Yvonne Daniel. Okay. Yvonne Daniel, she is an anthropologist and a dancer. Okay, a trained dancer, anthropologist, and initiated priestess in Afro-Brazilian tradition. And so that book is very, very important. It goes into depth about the medicine in these dances. And so reading the book can teach you a lot. And then seeking out these dances, whether you're male or female, you have access to these classes and taking them. There's a lot of our history that you will learn that is encoded in these dances and a lot of medicine. So when I started studying these things, I had even more of a fascination with Cuba. The literacy rate here is 95%. People in Cuba, whether they clean toilets or whatever they do, they're very knowledgeable about their dances and traditions and rhythms, which is very, very rich. And so Americans, it was hard for us to go for so long. I tried to go with a dance teacher 3 years ago, Afro-Cuban dance teacher in New York from Santiago. Last minute I couldn't go, lost all this money, I was so sad. So as soon as the restrictions opened up for us to go, thanks to Obama, I came. So I'm here, and I plan on coming here as much as I can because who knows, what Trump may try to do in terms of changing that. And even then, I will still do my best to come here. It's beautiful. Beautiful like I imagined, but also different from what I imagined. And again, I've only been in Havana and Old Havana. I would like to go to Mantanzas, which has a very close connection to where I'm from. My family's from in St. Augustine. And there was a lot of travel back and forth between St. Augustine and Mantanzas. Mantanzas stands for slaughterings. And I went to go to Santiago de Cuba, which is all the way on the other side of the island. That's where there are the Haitian Afro-Cubans. And Haiti has a huge history with Cuba as well, because after the Haitian Revolution, the Haitians that came to Cuba, they scared the slave masters here in Cuba because Cuba didn't want the same kind of uprising that happened in Haiti, number one. Number two, if you look at the Haitian Afro-Cuban dances, which I have studied. They're different than the Haitian dances, and they're different than the Afro-Cuban dances, and they're very high energy and aggressive, like dances for war. Okay, and when you see those dances, you can see how it could have scared slave masters. Okay, so that encouraged a lot of slave masters in Cuba to let the Africans in Cuba get into groups based on where they're from in Africa, to form societies so that they could so-called be happier and calmer. Okay? And because of that, there's a lot of like cultural and spiritual stuff that we contain also changed from what Africans do. And that has to do with a lot of things. One of them, I feel like, also their contact with Native people, because there are Native elements in all the so-called African-based traditions in the Americas. If you're dealing with different spirits, different elements, our African ancestors came to the Americas naked with nothing. So they had to recreate drums, and so now you're making drums out of the wood here. Now you're dealing with the spirits on this land, and that changes things. Can change protocol and the way things are done. But yeah, so Haiti definitely has played a huge influence, and I've heard great things about Santiago, and I do plan on going there. Trinidad, I've heard, was also very nice, and Havana, I mean, it's so black. Like, I knew there were a lot of black people here. They used to call Cuba the little Havana. There are, it's very much like America, though. Like white, black, Asian, and stuff in between, But a lot of black people in Havana. And a lot of them look like you could have plucked them off the street in Harlem or Brooklyn or Atlanta or something, Their swag, the way they move, the way they dress, they're fashionable. And their swag reminds me a lot of Afro-Americans, which all black people don't necessarily have that swag like Africans. Africans have their own swag. Africans are swagged out in an African kind of way, but it doesn't remind me of the swag of Afro-Americans. Here in Havana, they do. Everybody's super sweet, but the streets here are super busy all the time. It's so funny how people stereotype New York as like, oh my God, it's a big, crazy, busy city. But here, I've never seen a street that didn't have a whole bunch of people on it. And we're in Old Havana, it's like the French Quarters, but way more massive. Like, the building is way more streets, the buildings are way more massive, and there's way more people on the street. Constantly. It's like if you stop for a second, you feel like you're in somebody's way, or you are in somebody's way. And so it's very lively. There's an energy in the street that reminds me of New York. In Old Havana, there's live music everywhere. You're walking down the street, this restaurant has an amazing band. And for those of you who know me, you know that I love Afro-Latin music, especially Afro-Cuban and Puerto Rican, stuff from Colombia. I love Afro-Peruvian stuff. All of them are beautiful, but Afro-Cuban music, oh my God, and religious salsa music gets into my soul. And here you have it live every 5 steps. Beautiful. And most of the people playing this music are dark. Okay, they're black. Dark-skinned black people, unmistakably black, okay? And so a lot of people, like, if you go to Miami, which Miami, I've spent a lot of time in Miami. Miami is full of really hateful, stuck-up, blatantly racist white Cubans, okay? The ones who celebrated Castro's death. But here in Cuba, I was told that for 9 days, they did not play music or drink for 9 days out of respect for Castro. Black Cubans love Castro. White Cubans hate him. And part of it is that he ended segregation here. And he gave some land back to the black people. And you can clearly see when you come here that the white Cubans in Miami are definitely racist, disgusting people who are like, oh. Because the black people here, the indigenous people here are super beautiful. They're super, in a good mood. They love Obama. They're free-thinking, intelligent people. They're not all racist. And the white people who I've seen here, and again, I haven't been over the whole island, but this is Havana, Old Havana. The white people I've seen here seem to be cool with black people. It's all good. But in Miami, all the times I've been in Miami, which have been several, there are plenty of times that I've walked into a business, a Cuban business versus white Cubans. And as I'm talking to them, they're like backing up, like, oh, like they don't want me to touch them, or they don't want to breathe my air. And it's very obvious. Sometimes they have nobody in the business, but it's like they don't want my money, they just want me to get out. I remember years ago dancing salsa down on South Beach, and these white Cubans were looking at me like, like, how does she know how to dance like that? It's like, first of all, I could be Cuban or Puerto Rican because there's plenty of them that look just like me. But regardless of that, salsa is a black dance. It comes from black people in Cuba. Rumba, the true rumba, comes from black people in Cuba. Okay, people who are blacker than me, people who are my color and darker. It doesn't come from the white people, the Gloria Estefans and all her white musicians. And when I was a kid, my dad always used to point it out to me. He said, "This is Afro-Cuban." The people that Gloria Estefan has on stage and her and all that, that's not the face of this music. It's just like if people said that jazz and hip hop and rhythm and blues and soul music was all just American music, and we have white people representing it, everywhere. So people thought of hip hop and jazz and R&B, they think of it as white American music, and it's not. It comes from the black people. They try to erase us in that way. There would be no beautiful Afro-Cuban art and music without the black people. Period. Okay, let's get that clear. So there's also lots of bosses in Havana and Old Havana, a lot of locks, especially in the men. And what else did I see? Just people dancing and music. Everybody seems happy and in a good mood. I feel very safe, And I've never heard of anybody say anything bad about Cuba. But it's very difficult to get on the internet. It's like you can only get on for like an hour at a time. I don't know if it's an hour a day or an hour at a time, but you have to go buy a certain card that's like $4, $5, $6 to get online for an hour. You can only do it in the parks, or if you're staying in a hotel, which I'm not. But if you're staying in a hotel, they have the hotels, or you have to go to the park. Not even like an internet cafe in the park. You can't really upload videos or do anything major, and so I feel like Cuba could grow a lot with the internet. Right now, the place I found on Airbnb, and I'm having a great experience. I found a place to myself for $29 a night. So, as Americans, we can now go online, book tickets to Cuba, and book mine on JetBlue. It was $99 each way. And then $29 a night to stay at an Airbnb place right by myself. I can leave out and I can walk to get some food or walk to the internet park. But I think it would be a hard place to be if you don't speak any Spanish, because most people in Cuba do not speak English. And you'll have a pretty hard time unless you can hire someone to travel with you and translate, or you have somebody to translate. You should be able to speak some Spanish here. And I love it because I understand a lot of Spanish, but I'm not able to speak it, express myself the way I would like to. But even when I tell people that, they don't care. They still keep talking to me. And I've had very intelligent, high-level, in-depth conversations with people here. It's like people in Cuba want to talk to you. They're selling books everywhere. All the books have to do with revolution and Castro, Che Guevara, the Black Panthers. Now, I don't see silly books here like romance novels and Eric Jerome Dickey novels and just ghetto dumb shit. I don't see that. Everything is very serious. But people here are very intelligent, The literacy rate here is 95%. I think in the U.S. it's like 70. When I was in Haiti 6 years ago, the illiteracy rate in Haiti was 95%. Somebody just corrected me and told me it was 80%, but still that's a lot. Illiteracy rate. So the fact that Cuba is 95% literate, they don't really have access to the internet, and they have all these books that are highly intelligent. I saw these books on indigenous artifacts in Cuba and Aboriginal art in Cuba and in-depth histories of those neighborhoods in Cuba and the spiritual traditions in Cuba, or books on just the foods to feed certain deities, certain African deities in Cuba. Very complex histories and written by many scholars. And so you see a lot of that here, and they're very aware and intelligent. And despite it, United States doing what it's done to Cuba, the Cubans that I bumped into, they have a love for America and they would like to go. I feel like Cubans are very talented, intelligent people, and they have a lot to offer the world. So, being able to have more internet access would be good, a good thing. However, Um, I will say that the more internet access it seems like the rest of us have, the dumber we get. People nowadays seem pretty dumb to me. But when we have the internet, we have access to all this stuff. People should be smarter, but we're not. Here I see really smart people. And but I think Cuba has been the way it has been for so long. I don't think that the internet can completely change them. And possibly maybe the younger generation, we never know. But I just feel like they're, a lot further ahead of a lot of people when it comes to this intelligence and still reading books, critical thinking skills, good people. And so coming here, you can definitely see the difference. If you've ever spent time in Miami between the white, stuck-up, racist Cubans there who celebrated Castro's death and the ones here who honored him, Also, depending on where you are in Cuba or in Havana, because let me stop saying Cuba because I haven't been all over the island, but in Havana and Old Havana, I'm staying in a place called Mantanzas in Havana. Depending on where you're staying, some places are kind of rough. There are places that don't have running water. Where I'm staying, I do. I do have hot water heaters, so I can heat my cold water and take a hot shower. There's no refrigerator where I'm at, but it's clean in a safe area. But I've also seen other people who don't have running water, and flushing the toilet and taking a bath is a big ordeal. So with coming here, you want to look into those kind of things. Also, the fact that we cannot get more money out as Americans. You have to come here with whatever money you're going to spend, it's better to exchange American money into euros or Canadian money first, because if you just do it from American money to Cuban money, you lose a significant amount, since the euro and Canadian money is now worth more here. And if you play it safe, and that, because you could go to places in like Old Havana or places that are priced like the U.S., where a meal is $10, $12, $13, $14, $15, $16. But a lot of places you can get a full meal for $2. Like last night, I had a plate full of shrimp. No. It was a plate full of fish. It was some type of white fish from Cuba. I had never heard of it. Plate full of fish, a lot of moro, which is like rice and beans cooked together. The way Jamaicans make rice and peas, except for black beans, and cassava chips. And that was $2.10. And then I had a tall glass of pineapple juice made from fresh pineapples. The pineapples here are white. And that was 40 cents, and so it was $2.50. And earlier that day, when I was in Old Havana, where there was more tourists, I had a plate of shrimp and mono for $6. Okay, so $6 even, costly, but it's still a lot cheaper than the U.S. And I love the batidos, which are like fruit and milk. You can get those for like $3, depending on where you're getting it from. So you can eat here pretty cheaply. And there's a lot of really beautiful Cuban art. So when I come back, I'm going to bring money to buy some Cuban art, because you can get beautiful pieces that are not super costly. But again, as Americans, you have to be careful, because once you're here, we cannot get more money out. But it is not illegal for us to come. So I do suggest going, especially if you're black, and especially if you're a black person who's interested in stay black and die kind of people who are conscious of who they are and are not trying to bleach their skin or run from who they are, and have very rooted Afro-African, Afro-Indigenous traditions. I would say definitely check out Cuba. Okay, so I'm going to go get something to eat and do some more work and enjoy the rest of my day. So I hope you all like this video, and if you do, share it, and let's support Cuba. Okay? Bye.